Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. As always, on the fourth Wednesday of the month, I'm joined by Mark LaBarr, conservation biologist for Audubon, Vermont. Great to see you.
Always great to be here.
So today we're going to delve into field guides and talk about a special visitor.
Yes. Well, you know, it's funny because I've been on the show now for more than a decade, and I can't recall ever doing a show on field guides.
And there are so many.
And there are so many, and there are different ways. And as birding is becoming more and more popular, and as technology has changed, there are a whole different host of ways that people, different things that they use to identify birds. And we'll focus today primarily on the more traditional field guide. A good example of that is the Roger Tory Peterson guide.
This looks like a well-used guide.
This is my, this was given to me by an old girlfriend back in '86. You can see I've used it. It's Roger Tory Peterson put together some of the first guides that were out there for bird identification.
So the girlfriend's gone, but the book's still
here.
The
book is still here, and I still keep in touch with the girlfriend too.
Good.
So, but this was kind of a key turning point for a lot of birders because it was a way that people could go out in the field with their binoculars and they could identify what was around them. And so I acquired this copy in 1986, and for a long time it was the best, the one that I really liked. One of the things that Roger Tory Peterson developed, this is an illustrated copy, as you can see he used arrows basically to highlight the different areas of the different things that you should be looking at.
Which is hugely important.
Which is really important because that allows you to quickly identify different birds. Now, this was my favorite for many, many years. The tough part about this guide, though, is all of the range maps, oops, not quite there yet, were put in the back.
Oh, okay.
So you had to flip through and look at the bird, and then you had to then check, find the map in the back to try to find the different places for whether the bird would actually be there or not. So, it's a nice book. It has some nice illustrated pictures. It has those markings, but again, the range maps were a little bit difficult to do. Now, the other field guides that are out there today. We have the illustrated guides, which the Roger Tory Peterson one is. And then, of course, you've got guides like this is the Stokes guide. And this is a little bit different because this actually
has photographs.
Now,
I said originally that I liked the photographs, but after you pointed out the advantage of having the illustrations and the arrows, I have to think that probably makes a lot more sense for me, even because I don't know that much about birds, so it's very helpful.
Yep, and there are advantages. For instance, with that last guide that I showed you, the range maps were in the back. With this field guide,
it's right there.
You can see the range maps are right there on the same page. There are multiple different angles with the pictures. Audubon puts out a similar guide that uses pictures, and unlike you, I do like the illustrated versions. It's difficult for me. It's funny, you would think with a pair of binoculars you'd be seeing something alive and you'd want to look at that picture.
But again, in the photograph, I'm not sure I see the difference in some of the pictures, but I have to look like twice or three times. It's almost like one of those puzzles, which of these is different, whereas the other guide points out the differences for you.
And so again, it's just, when we talk about birding, we talk about binoculars, we talk about field guides. It's what your preference is and what's going to make that identification easy. So I've never used the Stokes guide, but it's a guide that many people do use. It is a regional guide, so you can see this is for the eastern region. So if you were to be out west, you would need to have the western version of this. I basically graduated after I had my Roger Tory Peterson. I never really used the Stokes guide, but I did move on to the National Geographic bird guide. And this is one that I really liked. It had, it's all the birds of North America, so it's one actual book. It does have descriptions. Unlike the Peterson guide, again, The range maps are right there, easy for you to see.
Very convenient.
Now, one of the things that this doesn't have, though, is those arrows.
Right.
So again, it's something that you're looking at that image. There's different versions of birds in there. So again, it's what you're comfortable with. And for many years, this was the kind of the standard for me when I was out in the field. It was a nice size. That's another thing to think about.
Right.
You know what you can carry around, and I was able to use it, and it worked really. It was really successful for me. This is a hard copy, but it does come in a softer copy, so it's easy to tote around and you know, put in your back pocket or put in a bag or a satchel or something like that. Now, specifically for Vermont, we talk about field guides. There are a number of other things out there. We're talking about books, but and I think I'm going to do this on another survey, but there is a whole different trend of people using their tablets or their phones in order to identify their birds. So this is the Audubon application or app. It allows you to go in, it allows you to see range maps, a whole bunch of different things that you can do. It does also provide song. So if you have a speaker, you can actually hear what the bird is singing or calling. But we'll talk about apps on another program because there are a host of pluses and minuses for that. And then getting back to more specific bird books, this is not really a bird guide as much as it's a bird, it's a reference that folks can use for birds specific to Vermont. Now, this is a book that came out a couple years ago, quite a few years ago, called Bird Watching in Vermont. It's put together by Ted Mirren and Brian Pfeiffer, two big birders in the state of Vermont. And this basically it's mostly text. There are no pictures, as you'll see. But it has descriptions of all the different good birding places that you can go to. It also has rare birds. So if you look at this right here, you can see where a rare bird has been seen and when it was last seen. And if I can find the page, it also has these little linear lines which actually tell you when the birds are in the state and how abundant they are when they're in the state. So a nice handy guide. I usually don't bring it in the field with me, but it's always next to my desk so that when I do get that phone call in, and like I had somebody call in the other day about a snow bunting on their deck. And I was not sure whether snow buntings are around. I didn't really think they were around this time of year, but you never know. And so I checked this, and sure enough, they're usually out of here by, they're usually out of here by April.
Oh, no kidding.
So we still haven't figured out what that bird is. We're still going back and forth, but again, a great resource. Now, when we go to the field guide that I currently use, and many people use, is a guide by the actual person who's going to be our special guest here in the state.
Really?
Yes. So this is the Sibley guide. And David Sibley, who's a self-taught illustrator, he actually was born right across the lake in Plattsburgh. Had decided, his father was an ornithologist, and he decided at a young age that a lot of the books that he was working on didn't show the forms of birds in various different phases. So not only the adult form, but also immature forms and stuff like that.
Which is hugely helpful because, a lot of birds look alike when they're young.
Correct. And David Sibley, he kind of took the reins from Tory Peterson, and he created, this bird guide, which is, right now is probably the bird guide that most people are using. And it has all the things you like. And it has all of the things that I like. Yep. It has multiple pictures. It doesn't have the arrows like the Peterson guide does, but it does point out different clues that you can look for in the different text. It's a great book. Again, this sits right next to my Bird Watching in Vermont book. This is my reference piece. It comes out in the field with me. And once again, it has the maps right on the page of the birds. So correct. You don't have to flip around. And the other thing that's nice about it is he did make another book. This is a smaller version of that field guide of North America. And it's just for the eastern region, but as you can see, it's something that fits in your pocket or your backpack
Very
a little
easy
bit
to carry.
easier. And he's done a number of different books as well. One more that I'd like to reference, if you have a little bit more time, this is Sibley's Guide to Bird Behavior. And this is more of a textbook type thing that talks about the different families and different groups of
So it delves a little bit
birds.
deeper into what the
Correct.
birds are up to
Right.
and what they do.
And David Sibley is coming to Vermont.
Tell us about that.
He will be in Vermont at the end of June on the 26th for an event here in Burlington. Folks can get more information about that if they want to go online at our webpage, vermontaudubon.org. And so we're all very excited. It should be a great event. He'll be coming in. He's going to do a presentation that evening for everybody. There'll be time to sign books. He'll sign books.
How exciting.
So people could do that. So it is an exciting time for us, and we're really looking forward to it.
Now, you also had another important fundraiser this month.
Yeah, so it's May, and May is time for our annual BertaThon. So what we're doing is that's one of our, like I said, one of our big fundraisers. It brings in money that supports the Audubon, and it's a lot of fun. We get to, as a staff, drive. Actually, we don't drive. I should step back. It's a non-fossil fuel BertaThon. So we walk or bike, mostly right around the area, in and around Huntington and down into Richmond. And we try to see as many birds as we can in a single day. And people sponsor us for how many birds we might see. So you can sponsor us, say, for instance, a quarter a species or 50 cents a species. We usually get roughly about 80 species in our travels. So that would be, anywhere from $20 to $40. Or you can sponsor folks at a flat, you can sponsor me at a flat fee. And you can do that by either calling into the office, or you can go to the Vermont webpage. You can go to vt.audubon.org/BertaThon. And you can make your donation online that way.
So tell us a little bit about why it's important to sponsor this event and to fundraise for the Audubon Center.
Well, you
have a lot of programs that you
We do have a lot of programs, and we have support a lot of times from donors that give to Audubon, the regular Audubon donors. We have funding from foundations, from government grants. So there's a whole, sort of different places that money comes from. But it is really important that the donors, the people that live here in the state and out of state, this is just another opportunity for them to support the good work that we do at the Audubon.
Now, you also brought something else that you wanted to show us too. It's not enough to see the birds, but you can actually hear them too.
Yes, so we talked about this, and this is a whole different realm, and this is going back in time. But I found these at the Audubon, and this is and probably most of our viewers remember what these, I don't know if my kids would remember, but this is an album of bird songs. So back in the day, you could listen to your bird songs using your record player, and this was another guide in helping you identify birds that are out there. Nowadays, oftentimes, you can still get them for people that have cassettes. You can use the cassette, if I can get this open. This was something that I used to have in my car all the time.
I bet.
I would pop it in every spring. I know most of my birds, but you get to some places that you just don't find them. And of course, nowadays, with bird songs, as I mentioned, your tablet or your iPad, or your iPod or your phone, oftentimes there's bird songs that are on that as well. And I use that quite a bit in the field when I'm out there, especially if I'm working with landowners, just to give them a sense of what what the birds are and what they sound like.
And what habitats they may want to preserve.
Correct.
So in your books, do you do what I do in my book, circle and put the date of when I see these species?
Sometimes I do. I have one Sibley book when I was down in the Dominican Republic. I did that with my book. Since I use it so much, it's funny because I probably have 3 different Sibley guides in various different places. One in my kit to go out on the lake, one next to my desk, one at the house. So a lot of people do that. You can also keep track of all your bird stuff and your sightings on Vermont eBird as well, which is an online way of keeping your checklist. But I do know many people that do that, yes.
Circle it. Well, if you have a bird-related question or you want to participate in Mark's BertaThon, you can write to him at Audubon, Vermont, 255 Sherman Hollow Road in Huntington. The zip code is 05462. You can also email your questions to Mark. His email address is mlabarr@audubon.org. Send Mark your questions, and he'll try to answer them on an upcoming edition of Bird Notes. Thanks so much for joining us.
You're very welcome.
And thanks for the visuals.
Sure, sure.
That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.